So it is the day of counting in these all-important elections, 30 years into our democracy, 30 years after 1994. And these elections have been called almost as important as the 1994 elections. The numbers have started coming in, only about 10% of the vote. In fact, just over 10% of the votes nationally have been counted, and the numbers, very, very interesting. And we're going to get some analysis on those numbers in a moment. We are still in conversation with political analyst Malaika Mahlatsi. Also, now joined by Mr. Jabu Rakwena, who is the spokesperson of AZAPO, as well as Mr. Mabine Seabe, who is the Director of Communications for Rise Mzansi. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Right, I did mention this earlier. When the bell goes off, we know that the numbers have been updated on the dashboard behind us. The bell just went off moments ago, and officially now 900,000 votes have been counted, still just over 10% of the counting that has taken place. 900,000 is quite a lot. It's not looking good for Rise Mzansi. You're still sitting at 2,500 of 900,000. How are you feeling?
Look, I mean, we are cautiously optimistic. Let's wait for Gauteng, Western Cape and KZN numbers to come in full, and I think that will paint a clear picture. Of course, that's where we focused our campaigns. We were strong there, but we were also focused in very small communities where many political parties didn't campaign. So we're waiting for those votes to come in. We've got numbers coming in from our side, and some are looking quite good. And we're confident that come the final numbers, there will be a good showing for Rise Mzansi.
Yeah, but a lot of the bigger parties are sitting at 5-digit numbers at this point, and you're still sitting at 2 digits. I mean, it's not very confidence boosting, I imagine, for Rise Mzansi. Not confidence boosting as well for AZAPO. You're sitting at just over 1,000 votes of 900,000. Is this a dying party?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. You know, you need to understand the genesis of AZAPO. You need to understand where AZAPO comes from, to understand and appreciate that AZAPO is ingrained in the DNA of our people. So AZAPO is not a dying party. You would recall that since 1968, when Black Consciousness was formed, it has been crying out for land restoration. It has been crying out for wealth in the hands of the indigenous people. And we are seeing that seed germinating in the sense that other political parties like your MK, your EFF are now singing the same voice. And that in itself gives us an indication that whatever we're planting is beginning to take root, and it will definitely materialize.
What was campaigning looking like for AZAPO? I mean, I must say that from a visibility point of view, and Malaika, perhaps you can help me as well, what campaigning was like, was there enough visibility of AZAPO? Give me the challenges. Let's be frank here.
Yeah, the challenges has been funding. The challenges has been material in terms of posters, in terms of adverts in the media and so on. Those have been our challenges, but we've reached out to our people. We've been meeting our people on a door-to-door basis. Remember, we started with collecting of signatures, and that in itself gave us an indication of what our people are feeling up, and it translated into the manifesto that we ultimately produced. So we were definitely speaking to the issues that the people were raising with us and the frustrations that they were having. So we are not a party that is aloof and not attached to the aspirations of our people.
Malaika, he says funding. The challenge was funding. I mean, is money the determining factor of how well a party does?
I mean, I don't think it's the only determining factor of how well a party will do, but certainly, I mean, earlier on we were speaking about some of the very significant challenges that the IEC was confronted with as a result of these very successive budget cuts that it has experienced. And so we definitely did see what money can do, and particularly in an election year, right? We saw the implications of that with the IEC. Certainly that also translates with political parties as well. I do think that where there are constraints of money, there are bound to be constraints of like accessibility, for example. We've got communities, I mean, if, for example, a party like AZAPO, or a party with limited funding, was to campaign in a province like the Northern Cape, I mean, it's a vast province, huge province. You know, there are places where when you are in Kimberley, which is the economic nerve center, you can still travel over 1,500 kilometers to some communities within the Northern Cape, and you are still in the same place. I mean, if you don't have resources for things like that, then it becomes very difficult to access people. Yeah. And I mean, we were speaking just about this, Naledi, earlier on, that a lot of the time, visibility is often spoken about in the context of social media, right? A lot of parties might be visible on social media. It does not necessarily translate that they are visible on the ground, right? A lot of, social media is very accessible to many people, but less than half of the population of South Africa is on social media, right? And yet still, you still have over, far more than over 30 million people who are not on social media, who also do get access by political parties. And then I think I do agree with Mabine, who was saying that there are communities on the ground where parties don't even go to campaign. And Rise Mzansi gets in there, and there aren't even political parties campaigning in those smaller communities. And when you often, particularly when you watch on social media and you see the bigger parties being very visible and so on, it does give a false impression that campaigning only happens on social media. But you do have parties that go into communities where no one really does go. And I think this is true of parties, in particular parties like your Rise Mzansi and even your AZAPO, that have particular constituencies. I mean, AZAPO has got a set constituency really, and it's a historical constituency that's always been there.
But AZAPO has a set constituency, and I think there's something to say about that. It's also had years of developing, understanding that constituency. Rise Mzansi, a brand new party. I wonder if this feels like a false start, because even when we talk about the issue of money, right, Rise Mzansi, some will argue, was a well-resourced party going into this election. So is the issue that you simply have not clarified your constituency?
Look, the results, as you said, we're a new organization, and the results that come out in the scoreboard will establish where our constituency is. But let's talk about what do we mean by well-resourced. Yes, we've received funding and we're grateful for it, and we ask more and more South Africans to do so. But if you have a rally at a stadium like FNB Stadium or Moses Mabhida, that is at least 50 million rand spent in a single day. So let's have a conversation in its entirety about what does well-resourced mean. Yes, we've got funding, but we made sacrifices. We did not have TV adverts, but we decided that we're going to do more postering. We decided that we'd fund our operations on the ground to reach communities that other political parties are not reaching. Those are the balancing acts that we need to make. We're not very well-resourced. Yes, we had resources, but we made those resources go far.
Yeah, okay. Rakwena, let's do this. Now, essentially, in the next few days, there needs to be conversations around what you do with the votes that you do get, where you pull them together. I mean, have you started having those conversations? And, of course, there's going to be the concern around just how much leverage you have to be able to do that.
No, definitely. We've been, in fact, last night we had a special meeting of the top executive committee of our organization, and some of the issues were discussed in relation to what scenarios are we painting and what outcomes are we expecting, and if those outcomes, what is it that we intend to do. And those discussions will go on to our lower structures, so that at least when we go out to review and analyze our performance, we're able to take our structures along.
Okay. Mabine, I'm going to let you have the final say here. I know that Malaika is going to stay with us really throughout the day, so we'll keep hearing her thoughts and even, her analysis on the conversation here. But for you then, do your numbers give you leverage going into coalition talks?
Look, I mean, talking about coalitions, that's a decision that, for instance, our top structure must make on Monday once the results are on the scoreboard. But as an organization that is new, an organization that will not have the type of numbers that will enable us to initiate conversations while doors open, and we'll wait for those phone calls.
All right, we'll be watching closely. Any surprises that you're hoping to see on the scoreboard?
Well, I mean, I think we're going to see quite a number of surprises. I think we're going to also see some things that we do expect. I think the MK party, I've been seeing now with just over 10% of the vote counted, is doing pretty well. And I think we did have that expectation. But I think, Naledi, just please indulge me a bit, right? Mabine, you said something quite very interesting about how Rise Mzansi has had to think very seriously also about where it directs its resources. And I'm wondering, what determination, what do political parties like Rise Mzansi, a new party, what determination does it use to decide where to direct the resources? So why, for example, you said you are waiting for Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal.
Right.
Why there, and why direct the resources there, and how do you make a determination about where to and where not to?
Great question.
I mean, urban centers are low-hanging fruit. It is easier to campaign in those urban areas, the Western Cape, Gauteng, as well as KZN. And in the initial work that we had done on the ground, engaging with communities, there was a hunger for an organization like Rise Mzansi. But as already previously stated, we do not just focus our efforts there. There were communities that many South Africans have not even heard of that we did a lot of work there. And I think we'll see the fruits of our labor bear there.
Yeah, well, we're going to leave it there. Malaika Mahlatsi is our political analyst and the friend of the anchor, so she's with us for most of the morning. She'll be with Iman Rapeti as well on the other side of 9 o'clock with great insights, great questions as well moving forward. Thank you so much to our guest, Mr. Jabu Rakwena, spokesperson for AZAPO, as well as Mabine Seabe, who is Director of Communications for Rise Mzansi.